views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Salem Media of Hawaii.
Aloha and welcome to Be Fit for Health. This is Biyanka, your host. It's another beautiful day to celebrate our health and wellness. And you know, we're going to have another exciting show because I brought back Anthony Chrisco from the Fascianator back to our show. And you know, we had him on in the very beginning and I was really excited to have him on because, you know, not too many people understand what exactly the fascia is. How does it correlate with our body? What happens to our body when our fascia isn't properly utilized in our system, and what kind of ailments occur, and is there a way for us to fix it? Is there a way for us to make it work better for our body so that everything functions the way it should? And you know, people really don't realize how important this particular unit in our bodies and how important it's a tool in helping us move better and actually feel better too. So you know, instead of me you know, talking about it, which I know somewhat about it because I'm dealing with it myself with the fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is a derivative of some fascial issues. And if anything, it might be the complete package because we still are learning so much about the fascial system. So Anthony Chrisco, man, he is incredible. He was, I would say, the founding father of how to utilize and how to fix in a different methodology when it comes to exercise, because he was a trainer by trade. He saw a concept along with his wife and thought about how can we make this better? How can we make people move better? How can we make people feel better? How can we make people healthier? And him and his wife came up with the Fascianator. But we're going to get more into that later after we discuss a little bit of history about what the fascia is, and you know, the anatomy of it, the physiology of it, and all the good stuff that comes along with it. He also co-authored a book called Pain Free, and we'll talk about that too. And it's a great book. It's on Amazon. You can buy it at his website, fascianator.com. And it's a natural treatment. It's a roadmap to a natural treatment, so it's pain-free every day. You can't miss that book. You got to buy that book. It's really a must-read. And then also, he's, like I said, his background is in physical education. He's got his BS in that. He is an ACE certified personal trainer for 25 years, probably longer than that by now. Basically about the same amount of time as I've been a trainer. So Anthony, welcome, welcome back. You know, I could go on and on and on to talk about who you are and what you've done so far, but I really want to, your credentials will come through after we spend an hour together and talking about what the fascia really is and what you've done to make this even more on the roadmap to everyone's forefront to understand what the importance are balancing out our fascia. So exactly what is a fascia and where did it come from as far as our understanding what the fascia is?
Well, fascia has been talked about for about 300 years. Osteopaths were some of the first people to discuss it, specifically Andrew Taylor Still, who was the founding father of osteopathic medicine. And the fascia is the connective tissue that surrounds every single cell in our body. And that's about 80 trillion cells, okay?
That's a lot more, yeah, crazy that we have that. It's the myelin sheath is basically what I understand it is called, right?
Well, myelin sheath is the fatty sheath around the nerves, but around the nerves themselves, you also have a layer of fascia called epineurium.
Nice.
And I'll give you an example. When fascia is dry due to overuse and aging or overtraining, not enough hydration, you lose the viscosity, it starts to get sticky, you then have friction within the joints and within the things like the carpal tunnel, which then causes pain, inflammation, and altered function of the muscle or the joint or the nerve or even into the circulatory system.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. So basically, this isn't a new form of an understanding of the fascia. This has been around for a long time. Over the years, though, and it seems like from what you were generous enough to send me a PubMed.gov, a peer review, journal written about the fascia, and I just want to, because I don't know it, I have to look at my footnotes here. So it started back in 1814. They recognized it as a connective tissue, and we kind of layman's understand what connective tissue is, right? but we didn't understand the importance of how the connective tissue functions in our body. Now you're saying that it not only has a response, it also has a cause and effect. So
Absolutely.
basically you're saying that pain also can come from the fascia.
That's right.
Wow, that's crazy.
So you know why pain can emanate from the fascia? Just recently, they have pretty much figured out there's around 250 million sensory receptors within the fascia itself. From that fascia goes from head to toe in one continuous strand without interruption. So if you have a chronic pain somewhere all over your body and it can't be diagnosed with typical Western medicine,
Right.
maybe you should look into your fascia.
So how do you get diagnosed if it's a fascial response, or if it's a muscular response, or if it's a tear, or how do doctors decipher that?
Well, in a way, they have these misnomers or these broad generalizations. For example, there's one called myofascial pain syndrome.
Right.
What does that say to you? Myofascial pain syndrome.
Means they don't know what it is.
Exactly. What about fibromyalgia, which you do have?
Yeah.
Fibromyalgia is clinically defined as a non-specific musculoskeletal pain disorder with no known etiology. And
Yeah.
etiology means source. So, Biyanka, I'm sorry to tell you,
We don't know what it is.
you got this thing, and it took us 5 years to figure it out based on these tests that don't look at the fascia. And here's some muscle relaxers, some sleeping pills, and some
Depressant pills.
antidepressants. And now the new ones are these biologics. I won't mention the name, but I'll give you an example of the commercial. I used to be so active before I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Now I can only wish I was like that. Well, there's a new drug on the market, which we won't say. Take this. See if the doctor will give it to you. Warning, may cause cancer. Some lymphomas
And death
may occur.
You know what's crazy is that a lot of people don't realize that a lot of our connective tissue, because it involves a lot of things like our organs, our muscle fibers, it involves our nervous system, it involves our brain, it involves all these things. Because it protects and engulfs all of these things, it affects everything. So if you have pain, let's say in your shoulder, you could also have pain in your lower back, you could have pain in your calves or your toes. You may not know why, but it could be connected to that source. So it's like a information overload, right? So if the nerve is inflamed there and the connective tissue is a part of that, that information gets traveled all the way through your system.
You got it.
I mean, I had to learn this, Anthony, because of the fact that the doctors, God bless them, they all may understand what a connective tissue is, but they may not be completely aware of how to fix it and how to work with it, except for maybe medication. So I know that, with all of this being said and done, from this journal that you sent me, it seems like it took the discovery in 1814, but by the time it got to more modern times, like 2012, 2013, it wasn't recognized until this time as it being now an organ, correct?
That's right. And thank goodness for Robert Schleip and Thomas Findley. These two gentlemen, I consider Robert Schleip my friend and mentor. Him and Thomas Findley started the Fascia Research Congress. They also started the Fascia Research Society, of which my wife and I are founding members.
Oh.
And just to give you an example, right now fascia's everywhere. Everyone thinks they got something, and that's great.
Right.
Well, my wife and I have been in the trenches from the onset of the Fascia Research Society. We're founding members, and there's only 263 founding members in the whole wide world.
Wow.
And you can even look at that list at fasciaresearchsociety.org.
Yeah, it's incredible there isn't that many people. But what's crazy too is that a lot of medical professionals are just now starting to want to learn more. And I think, going back into our understanding of the fascia and looking at these dates and us finally recognizing it as an organ, I know that you had mentioned to me previously too that, although you're a trainer and you've been doing this to help people feel better and look better and also be functional, you've also dabbled now back into the medical realm, where you were invited by Kaiser Medical Group to basically educate their medical doctors on what you're doing to help people through pain and discomfort and maybe functionality.
You're
Tell
absolutely right.
Tell us about that.
Well, a couple years ago, Kaiser Permanente Hawaii invited us to be one of the presenters at their annual Professional Development Day for the doctors. And we had 4 hours of lectures where about 20 doctors at a time would cycle through, and we would teach them the physiology of the fascia, how it responds to the fascianator, how poor fascia can lead to dysfunctions, not just in the musculoskeletal system, but in the lymphatic system, respiratory system, digestive system, and even in the nervous system.
Wow.
So the cool part there is a lot of them were open-minded.
Oh, that's great.
And when we asked them, who can tell me what the fascia is? One of the surgeons raised his hand and said, well, I cut it all day.
Oh, that's a good answer. That doesn't help, though. Okay.
All right, so we try to give the doctors the opportunity. Well, if you know what fascia does in a body with a non-invasive procedure that's non-pharmacological, non-allopathic, and can lead to a greater long-term health for your patients, doesn't that sound like something you'd want to learn about?
Yeah, I would think so, right?
You would think so, but as you know, who's running the show?
Well, there is also another part to it too. Doctors may not think that insurance companies would support anything that may be non-pharmaceutical or non-surgical. So,
would you like to hear an experience about that?
sure.
Okay, our class has also been taught at Triplet Army Hospital for the last 7 years in their interdisciplinary pain management center. And in that center, it includes yoga, chiropractic, massage, and Fascianator. Well, the sergeant in charge of that department at the time said, I really like this. I want to get this for all the soldiers instead of a bottle of Motrin of 800 milligram pills
Right.
in their pocket. I was right there when he's on the phone with the insurance company, and they said, well, no, it's too alternative. This rolling method that doesn't require surgery or pills is too alternative.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe they needed some peer reviews or some kind of research or whatever to prove that this is something that works.
Oh, you mean like the new book out by David Lazendak, Fascia, Function, and Medical Applications?
I mean, are those kinds of things enough?
Well, that's the thing. We were ahead of the game. This book just came out last month.
Okay.
So again, it's 2020. I've been doing this work in post-rehabilitation for 8 years.
Right.
My clients cancel their surgeries.
Yeah.
Their doctors take them off the drugs. We get rid of diabetic neuropathy, chemotherapy-induced neuropathy, idiopathic constipation, vertigo, tinnitus, Bell's palsy. I can go on and on and
So
on.
how is that you're able to do that and medical doctors aren't able to do that? I mean, let's start with this first. Okay, so you brought, and if, for the radio people, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to see this, but you'll be able to see it if you go to my YouTube, and I'll have this on for you. So you have, what you're showing me is your tube-like Fascianator.
Yeah.
And it's wrapped around with your logo on it with the socks looking type of thing, but it's nicely done. And you have this as your tool, but can you show us as your sample here of what the fascia looks like, and that's engulfing basically, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's basically engulfing like the veins and the nerves and the arteries and
Lymphatic vessels.
lymphatic vessels. So this is basically, the outer part is showing us is the fascia and what it basically protects. But besides it protecting and wrapping it around it, the fascia basically is made up mostly of water, correct?
It's collagen
Okay.
and water.
Okay.
And some people say, well, there's 23 types of collagen. It's collagen number 2 to be specific. Unless you're a biochemist or a biological scientist, collagen is collagen, but the fascia is mainly comprised of collagen number 2.
Is there a specific amino acid?
I don't know. There's a lot of properties that are onto that, and my job is not to get into the biochemistry of the fascia. I can speak on the anatomy of it,
Okay.
the physiology of it, how it responds under conditioning type activities, and how
Right.
it responds when left to its own devices.
So if someone has a fascial issue, and because it's made up of collagen and water, what if they just hydrated themselves? Would that make a difference in their body's response to pain or other things?
I tell people 50% of your problems are because you don't drink enough water. Period. Right? 90% of the US population doesn't drink enough water.
Yeah, so you're thinking what? Is that you half your body weight?
Half your body weight in ounces every day. And to give you an example of how much water the fascia actually holds, and the average person, let's say an average man, 160 pounds, this average person, the fascia of that average person contains 4 gallons of water in the fascia.
4 gallons?
4 gallons. Now, I want you to think about this. They have 2 types of water. There's free water and bonded water, bound water. And one type of that water, the bound water, is what contains all the cellular waste.
Oh,
and it's
toxins.
locked in the tissues, and that's what causes the inflammation. It can cause what we call they're called cellular waste products are known as inflammatory cytokines. One of those is known as tumor necrosis factor. Another one is called TNF. Well, yeah, that's TNF beta. Another one is called, let me see, all these fancy names. I was practicing it just last night. VEGF-C, okay, endothelial. It's endothelial growth factor. And what that means, if you have all this toxic waste festering in your body, it's going to cause your fascia to dry up. And this fascia has been measured to put about 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch on your pain-sensitive structures.
That's probably my issue then.
Now think about it. If you have 250 million of these sensory receptors, i.e. pain-sensitive structures, some are sensitive to pressure, some are sensitive to temperature. Have you ever had the spot where your leg feels like it's on fire?
Yeah, that was this week.
Oh.
I felt like I had a sunburn, my entire head to toe.
You don't say.
Like a neuropathy type of feeling, but it was, yeah.
So when the fascia is squeezing these sensory receptors, they send other signals throughout the cells. They all communicate through gap junctions.
Oh,
but it's the fascia that wraps every cell that allows every cell to communicate. Now, it gets even deeper. There are these things called integrins. They're molecular pieces of outside the membrane that actually penetrate the cellular membrane, and they're like little sticks.
Okay.
And when they get tighter and thicker, it causes the cell to get tighter, and that tells the nucleus within that cell to send another chemical cascade to head towards more inflammation. Like, we don't know what's there, let's send more inflammatory response to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And remember when I rolled you out that first time, and you fell ill for a couple days after?
Yeah, well, we did it for maybe too long for my system couldn't handle it.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Your body said, what do I do?
Yeah, too much toxins flowing.
Well, think about it. There's people who don't have fibromyalgia where that has also happened to them.
Yeah.
They actually come down with flu-like symptoms.
Right.
And it's similar to this COVID thing where the COVID can cause a cytokine storm.
Yeah.
And everything, all the organs get inflamed.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. And lupus is another one of these fascia-related disorders.
How's that?
Because lupus is when they have all this inflammation all over the body. It can affect the eyes, it affects the organs, etc. Well, I've been working with the Lupus and Sjogren's Foundation of Hawaii, started by Malaka Kanela. She's a RN out here in Hawaii, but she had lupus and she realized, hey, there's nothing happening in Hawaii with lupus, so I'm going to start the foundation to help people understand. Well, how did I get involved with that? She invited her board of directors, a group of about 30 physicians, all rheumatologists and fibromyalgia. They're all the doctors that deal with inflammatory responses. And I rolled them out at the old Honolulu Club.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Right? And guess what they said? Wow, this can help our clients. This is next level. This is amazing. So ever since then, every year, my Fascianator class is one of the main presentations at the annual conference.
Nice.
And it's great because they are actually the first group of physicians who said, Anthony Chrisco, you are really onto something here. And I said, well, should I change my presentation? Like, nope, just get up there and do what you do.
So my question is, you have this elongated tube-like almost like, and please don't kill me when I say this, almost like a foam roller type of thing, but it's hard and it's smaller and it's more specific. But is there smaller pieces that we could use? So like for example, this is about what, 3 feet, just about 2 feet.
Yeah, it's about 2 feet long,
So,
20 inches.
Do you have anything smaller than this so that you can utilize it to? It's okay, you can grab it if you want. Just I'm curious to see. It's like because I'm thinking there are people that may want to try to get into crevices of their neck, because this is a bit too big for the neck portion, or maybe for the you know what I mean. So there's got to be a way to get to the fascia, not using that.
When you get a Fascianator, it comes with a 26-page comprehensive manual that goes from the bottom of the foot all the way into the smaller muscles within the neck, specifically the Sternocleidomastoid. And the cool part is the techniques, the methodology that took me about 7 years to develop with trial and error, working on myself, trying it on friends, where I found these opportunities to get rid of vertigo, to get rid of tinnitus, to help with Bell's palsy, to get rid of night vision blindness, okay? What do you mean night vision blindness? I mean people who can't drive at night because the lights are so squinty, they can't see. And the best part about it, the person who we helped, who had the night vision blindness, she's a retired physician.
Oh.
And she was skeptical at first.
Well, I would be too. I mean, how do you get rid of night vision? Isn't that like the issue with the rod and cones in your eyes?
Maybe.
Or is it the optic nerve that you're working with?
The optic nerve is underneath the sternocleidomastoid as it
gotcha.
leaves the skull before it goes into the eyeball.
Okay.
And if I release the fascia around the optic nerve, it's as if I'm going from a 16 baud modem to a 400 kilobyte per second fiber optic wire. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You basically gave it enough breathing room to do its natural flow.
Oh, it's kind of like what they say in naturopathic worlds. If you give the body the opportunity to do its job,
It'll heal itself.
It'll heal itself. Now, to answer your question, do we have smaller devices? Yes.
Something.
Look at that little guy.
This almost looks like the facial stuff that we do for our tonality of our skin on our faces. So
That's exactly right.
So is it Jade?
It is a Jade face roller, and the one I got, it broke in my bag, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You can use this to help with temporomandibular joint problems.
You should get me one of those.
You can help get around your trachea
right.
and your carotid arteries and all those things. You can use it around the eyeball. Now, when we roll over the eyeball, I have several students. I have their visual acuity tests from their ophthalmologists where they have showed a decrease in the darkness in the field of view, meaning instead of glowing blind, we're restoring their vision. And don't take my word for it.
No,
take the word of the doctors who did the test.
It kind of makes sense to me because you're talking about circulation. And I was talking to you earlier about compression, when you and I talked this week, and I was using this compression machine. And basically it's similar to the theory of what you're trying to say is you're trying to squeeze out that stagnant fluid in the fascia and in the muscles and everything else so that your lymphatic system then can do its job to get rid of it.
That's right.
But if we're not hydrated, that's still going to go back into maybe another section of your body instead of where it was before. It's going to move to another part of your system. So there's that, with your book and with the tools that you're trying to, and you're trying to make it simple for people to just do this at home, where they don't have to go to a fitness facility or they don't have to go to a doctor's office. You're trying to guide them in a way that makes sense to me. But, with all these ailments that you're talking about, you're basically trying to allow flow, is what you're saying. So let's talk about frequency. So is fascia frequency based? Because we brought on Kelly a couple of times. We do the electroechoscope. We try to recommunicate communication between the nerves. How does this work with that concept of frequency? We are energy beings. We're working with fascia. Fascia is not energy. It's an organ. How does this work with the frequency factor?
Well, there's a book out there called Energy Medicine.
Right.
And it's written by James Oshman, who I was fortunate enough to meet at Harvard Medical School back in 2015 at the first joint conference on fascia, cancer, and acupuncture. And when you speak of vibration, well, your fascia transmits vibration. It can transmit heat, hormones, light, water. It's energy, right? These are the things that, yeah, we're life beings. If you don't have vibration and energy and water and fire, what are you? You're slowly dying, okay?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you an example. We were rolling out a bunch of people in California at a senior activity center, and there was this lady and this man. They didn't know each other, but when they were there rolling, she noticed, and I noticed also, that his skin was gray and pale, and his eyes were empty. And I was standing there at the end of the class when we finished rolling the whole body. She's like, "Oh my God, your face is pink and your eyes are bluer." What do you think? The light was flowing. And to give you an example of the light, in that book by James Oshman, Energy Medicine, The Scientific Basis, he says the amount of light that a human being can emanate can be seen from 15 miles away with a high millimeter wave, a very high sensitivity millimeter wave device. So the amount of light that a human emits is about the intensity of a candle.
Wow.
And they were able to see it from 15 miles away.
Wow. So, yeah, so basically everything you're saying is there's connectivity, and there's flow. If there's no flow, the dullness of our frequency becomes it. So basically it's like your electric unit in your wall. You know, if the juice isn't flowing to it, no matter what you plug into it, it's not going to radiate any type of energy to the, whatever it is you're plugging into.
Yeah.
So the flow has to be there.
Yeah, and the same can be said with other people we interact with. Have you ever talked to someone who was just sucking the life out of you? Of course you have.
That wouldn't be you, though.
No, and you also, you're not that way either. When we talk, we're like two firecrackers. Yeah. But there are people, they're energy drainers. And why? Because they're not plugged in to this amazing fascia.
Oh,
Think
yeah.
about it.
Yeah, or they're not hydrated. Think about that. Hey, we're going to take a really quick 15-second commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk with Anthony about more of the Fascianator and what he's doing right now when it comes to how he's helping people out during this COVID pandemic, and how he's not able to get to other places, but how is he able to get to those people that are outside of this country. We'll be right back.
You don't need to be a member of a gym to get your health and fitness back on track. Be Fit for You.
Yeah, we'll
with a
definitely
Be
get
Fit for Health online
more
personal training
detail
and
about
nutrition
the
program.
Fascianator.
With 30 years of
We're
personal
28
training experience,
28 minutes
Biyanka will help you better yourself.
Okay, so we've got another
Be Fit for Health.
20.
For more information or
5
to
minutes,
schedule a free
23
wellness
minutes.
consultation, visit
Something like that.
So let's talk about,
for more.
we'll talk about the physiological response.
And we're back. I'm so excited. You know what? There's a lot of high energy going on in here, because between Anthony and I, Anthony Chrisco, who is the founder of the Fascianator and really brilliant when it comes to knowing what the fascia is, he and I are like, we can go all over the place. He's got a lot of information. I have a lot of information, and we just going back and forth. So I hope you guys can hang in there with us and keep up with us, because we've got so much to teach you and educate you, empower you with your body, and we really want you to have this option. Like, the show is all about giving you guys an opportunity to find other methods to help you with your pain or discomfort or ailment that you may have besides the pharmaceuticals or the Western medicine, because all of those are important, but it's not the end all be all, because one shoe doesn't fit everybody. You have to find the one that's going to be able to help you with your specific needs. So let's get back into our topic. When we're talking about the frequency factor of the fascia, the flow factor of our energy unit in our bodies, and when they're stagnant, we've got this toxic fluid stagnation in the tissues. And the Fascianator basically is allowing that stagnant fluid to be pulled out of our system. And our body has a natural innate ability to heal itself if you're giving it what it needs to do so. And so the Fascianator itself is one tool that Anthony's come up with that is actually making some big waves in the medical world and other facilities that may want to help their people get healthier and better. So, and I know, Anthony, you used to travel before this pandemic with the COVID thing. You were traveling to Germany, Philippines, and all of these other places, and you were helping a lot of their people get into the concept of how to get their bodies back into flow. So what are you doing now, and how are you able to help these people since you're not able to travel?
Well, two different ways. Number one, I have daily Zoom classes every day, and they're 1 hour long classes for students to roll out with me. And it's basically, this is self-care. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll hold your hand and guide you through your body and take you on an amazing journey where you will find things you never even knew you had. And at the same time, at the end of the class, a couple of these new tidbits of information that I bring to you, they'll stick with you, and then you'll tell someone else. And that's how we've been able to reach a global reach. For example, I also teach and write my own professional courses, and they're approved by the National Academy of Sports Medicine and the American Council on Exercise since 2012. And we teach professionals like in Pilates, physical therapy, chiropractors, massage therapists. We teach them the concepts of the Fascianator and how the fascia responds physiologically to this Fascianator. We also talk about the pathophysiology of poor fascia, meaning what's going on if my fascia is not healthy.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. There is a dysfunctional fascial system that could be one of the causes that determines the symptoms of like fibromyalgia or lupus or these other ailments that are out there. So how is it that we can bring our fascia back into a state where besides the Fascianator, what else can you teach? Because you were talking to me briefly about exercise that you have people do too. So what are some of the exercises that you would have your students do besides rolling out?
Yoga is fantastic, but it should be done with a little caution. If you have never done yoga, you better start slow. Make sure you're not competing with the instructor.
Oh yeah.
The other things we do is I use a vibration platform.
Yeah, like the
power plate.
Power plates. I love that stuff.
And I've been using those things for about 14 years. And what the vibration does, since we mentioned it earlier, the vibration causes the muscles around the bones to tense up. And what that does, that helps increase the mineral bone density, especially for our seniors.
Oh, yeah. And without having any too much of a intrusion into the spine.
Exactly. You're not loading the spine longitudinally.
Or the knees or the shoulders.
Right.
It's all vibrational frequency. And there's different types of plates that are out there, guys. I'm sure you've heard of the power plate or vibrational plates. There's the kind that goes side to side, which is called oscillation. The other one it's much more vertical, and it goes up and down.
It's linear.
Linear. So instead of going side to side, it goes up and down. And there basically is a gravitational force that is put into your body that you can do exercises on these plates. You'll feel like you're doing weight training, but without having the negative effects of weights. And it's really safe on the joints, and it helps with, like Anthony said, helps with the bone density, especially for our seniors. You just want to keep it at a lower frequency, though. You don't want to have it too high in hertz because, again, it's energy. You don't want to overstimulate your system, especially with someone like me who's a fibromyalgia. If you go up in there with 50 hertz, you're going to overstimulate. I'm going to be knocked out for a couple of weeks. So, you got to understand these things and have a professional like Anthony or myself train you on something like that initially so that you know what you're doing.
And you guys, the technology now has improved so much. You can get a machine that used to cost $10,000. You can get them for $300. Okay,
crazy.
I've done the research. I have one in my house. I bring it to my private clients. They love it.
Oh wow! So is it like does it have handlebars? Is it just
Nope,
a
it's
regular?
just a little platform.
Oh, nice. So
You use your toes to push the buttons.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I need to get me one of those in my house. I'll have my entire apartment that's all of like 500 square feet is going to be filled with all these tools.
Yeah, well, this one has a very small footprint. I have one in my house. I absolutely love it. And after 10 minutes of just standing there, maybe doing some squats or lunges or stretching, your whole body's sweaty.
Oh, that's crazy.
It's
Well,
crazy.
It makes sense though, because you feel like you're kind of working out. You can do stretches on that too, right?
Absolutely, because it also elicits the stretch reflex, which makes the muscle not fight you when you're trying to elongate the tissue.
Yeah, you don't even have to move too much. It does it for you. It's really great. It's a great warmer upper for before exercise. It's a great cool down after exercise, and it's a great way of, like you said, getting the toxins out of the system and helping you flush it out.
And the best part, there are lots of scientific studies showing the benefits. So this is not like, oh yeah, right. No, if I'm talking about it, it's been vetted.
Yeah, guys, we're not even making a dime off of us talking about anything that has to do with outside of the scope of, our business. It really is. These are things that we had to figure out ourselves as trainers, as health professionals, trying to figure out what is going to be the most effective to our clients, especially now. Most people like me have dysfunctional issues based off of maybe wear and tear over 30 years ago. I was squatting almost 350 pounds. I was benching almost 180 something pounds when I was younger.
Yeah.
I didn't know that my body couldn't handle that kind of stress for a period of time. Going now 30 years later, my body's going, yeah, well, you did that, so we're going to teach you a lesson and you're not going to be able to do that. But
Right.
You're coming up with tools now for people like me to use so that we can get back into a normal way of life without having to take too many medications.
So the best part, the majority of my students on my Zoom classes, the average age is 75 years old.
Really?
Average age is 75.
Wow.
I love it. They're retired. They wait for me. These guys are so enthusiastic about their fascia. If I miss a body part because my brain is somewhere else, hey Anthony, you forgot that. I'm like, hey, that's why you're here. And the cool part, before we could travel, right? I have students who are retired. I have pictures. I have a lady, she was 81. She's at the pyramids in Giza.
Really?
Right? She's holding her Fascianator above her head with the pyramids behind her.
Oh my gosh.
I have pictures of the Fascianator at Machu Picchu, the Great Wall of China, Tiananmen Square.
It travels. It travels.
I even have the best one I got was from Antarctica.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, gosh, that's cold, so they have to roll.
Well, think about it. They're retired and they're still playing. They're still living. They're still enjoying life.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point.
Our whole mission is, if you love having fun, don't you want to have fun until you can't, till you stop breathing? That's my goal.
Well, I'd like to be able to do the kind of activities I'd like to do without having that downtime. Like I just said, this past week I had that little sunburn, neuropathy sensation from head to toe. I did the compressions. I did a little bit of the Fascianator, and the next day I was fine.
Right.
So I hydrated too, knowing this. As I'm doing the compressions and stuff, I'm drinking my water.
Right.
Because I know I have to. But, not everybody has these. And I know that, well, now you all know where to go when it comes to getting your own Fascianator and maybe getting your own Jade roller deal. But it's going to be really important for all of us moving forward with this COVID thing. And everyone's toxins are building in our system. We're not moving as much, right? Stress is building up in our systems because we're home and we're trying to figure out our bills. So stress is a big portion too of our toxic load, is it not?
Absolutely.
So, I would think that this would help alleviate. It's almost like massage.
Except it's better because you know why? Most people fall asleep halfway through the massage, true or false?
Yeah, it's true.
And if you stay connected, meaning mentally and physically, while you're rolling your fascia, the level of embodiment you will experience, the level of proprioceptive awareness that you will then start to realize is way better than someone rubbing your backside but not working on your abdominal space, your diaphragm, your pectoralis, or your lymphatic areas.
So
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. So tell me about the vagus nerve.
Okay.
How does this work with the vagus nerve?
The vagus nerve
My
sits
favorite nerve.
underneath the neck muscle right here. This
Okay.
muscle is the sternocleidomastoid. For those of you on the airwaves, imagine the neck muscle attached at your sternum and clavicle right by your Adam's apple.
Okay.
And you can trace that muscle all the way up behind your ear. There's a little bump there called the mastoid process, and that's why it's named that way. Sternum, clavicle, mastoid process. Say with me, guys, sternocleidomastoid.
Sternocleidomastoid.
So under that muscle is the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve does not come out from the spinal cord. It comes out along with 11 other nerves known as the cranial nerves. They come out from the bottom of the skull, go down your neck, and what that vagus nerve does, it goes down past your rib cage, it goes to your heart, lungs, diaphragm, spleen, kidneys, it goes to your gut. It is the nerve that speaks to your organs.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's the longest nerve that we have in our body, I think.
And
right?
it is the link of your brain to your gut.
Yeah,
And I'm sure you've talked about this in other shows.
Yeah.
Is there a link between gut health and brain health?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything. I mean, it's crazy. So the vagus nerve, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I was suffering from stomach pain. And what I discovered on my own is I'm researching spinal connections to the organs, and T6 is connected to the stomach and L2 is connected to the intestines. So I palpated my T6 and it alleviated some of the pain in my stomach. I'm like, there's something to this. And then I started palpating my mastoid process, and I started palpating my sternocleidomastoid and the scalenes and all the stuff that's in my neck. And all of a sudden the pain in my stomach went away. So I'm thinking, okay, well, instead of me going and spending a whole lot of money on stomach testing, why don't I keep up the working on the frequency factors of the neck, the vagus nerve being one of them, because I was also getting facial pain.
Mm-hmm.
So they're since you're saying they're connected through the underneath the sternocleidomastoid, and if they're getting sticky with each other, where they're touching each other and they're getting a little complicated with each other, that would make sense why something like Fascianator or that Jade thing that you're doing, any type of rolling that you can do or trigger point therapy that you can do to your sternocleidomastoid or that area would release some of the pressure on the vagus nerve.
Would you like to understand the physiology of why that happens?
No, please explain that.
Okay, so with fascia, when it's properly stimulated, number one, you break up the cellular waste that tends to crystallize and congeal. Sticky fascia, dry fascia, has a tendency to grow little attachments to the other structures. They're called adhesions. So imagine I put super glue on one forearm and I slack my other forearm on top of that super glue.
Right.
Okay, well, when I try to push one arm away, it's going to twist the other arm and cause pain in other locations.
Right.
Do you see the picture?
Yeah.
So when we roll the fascia, this has been scientifically proven by Robert Schleip himself. And just so you understand, he's a doctor of biological sciences at Ulm University. He's also part of the European Fascia Group. He's also part of the Ida Rolf Research Foundation.
Oh.
And he's also part of the Fascial Net Plastination Project, of which I'm also a member of. And I'll show you these structures, Biyanka, okay, while I talk about this fascia, okay?
Sure.
When we roll the fascia, a higher percentage of fresh water / interstitial fluid, think lymphatic fluid, floods the tissue to a higher percentage than before,
Wow.
thus increasing the elastic stiffness, meaning it's more pliable, more slippery, and it allows the structures to glide amongst each other like they were supposed to from the very beginning.
Wow, that's crazy. So basically, by me doing any type of treatment on my neck, I was basically breaking up the adhesions that were there and removing some of the toxins. That's why I relieved it, because I was getting Charlie horses in my
Yeah,
neck.
Biyanka, you're neck deep in the fascia self-care revolution.
Well, it makes sense now, because if that's the case, without me even realizing that I was doing it, I was doing something that you would have recommended for me to do anyway, just to get me from having these cramping, because I was cramping up a lot.
Yeah.
So that's because it wasn't hydrated. It was being dried up. It had all these adhesions and toxins. Wow, beautiful.
Think about it this way. Your fascia is like your spitting image, but all of just connective tissue. Think of it as your twin that's been with you your whole life, but you've been ignoring her. She's been writing you letters of neck pain and joint pain and sensitive skin, and you've been ignoring it and drugging her and masking it and saying, I'm not there yet.
So I'm passing it.
And finally, you said, hey, fascia, I hear you. You know what? Can we hang out? I apologize for those years before.
That's why it's nice to me now.
I
That's all
promise I'll take care of you if you take care of me.
I told you, I warned you guys that we're going to be a little crazy here today. But I'll tell you though, it makes sense. The vagus nerve is one of my biggest dilemmas. The fascia and the vagal nerve has been my culprit to a lot of the issues that I've been having when it comes to IBS, when it comes to
Absolutely.
any type of intestinal cramping. Talk about also maybe hormones. Does it have anything to do with hormones? Does it help?
100%.
Okay, so how does it work with the hormone system?
Well, I want you to think about the hypothyroidism, right?
Okay.
Your thyroid gland is having an issue producing the thyroxine, right? Well, the thyroid gland takes instructions from the pituitary gland. And your pituitary gland sits underneath the brain, and the dura mater, which is the fascia around the brain, also wraps that pituitary gland.
Okay.
And if I have compression of the pituitary gland, some studies are pointing that it can lead to pituitary gland dysfunction, meaning the pituitary, who's the boss of all the other glands, is not sending the right signals to the right organs at the right time. Now, how do I back that up? I had a client who, when we started, she was 81. She was on Synthroid for 12 years. After rolling for 1 year and massaging and stretching, the doctor took her off the Synthroid that she was taking every day for 12 years. Why did he take her off? Because her thyroxine levels were normalized.
Wow, that's interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And you know, people always say, I don't believe you, with their arms crossed. I don't believe you. You don't have to believe me. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's not that you're saying it, you're making it up. A doctor and a patient has gone through it, so there's evidence there. But you were also mentioning to me the other day, too, when it came to endometriosis, someone having that. And then you said something about the fact that the thickening of the tissue also caused a secondary response or third response of the kidney having issues based off of the fascia being connected to everything. Almost like Chinese medicine with the meridians, everything is connected to something, yeah?
Well,
so
I'm so glad you brought up the meridians. At that conference in Harvard on fascia cancer and acupuncture, some scientists from China said the meridians are the fascial lines, and the qi, the qigong, the life force, as they say, the qigong is nothing more than electrical signals, hormonal signals, water transmission, and all that other stuff, the vibrations.
Right.
So it makes sense. So if you want to really think about it, fascia hasn't started in 1814 or 1816 or whatever.
3,000 years ago.
Acupuncture is 4,000 years old.
Yeah. So it's really brilliant. I mean, I'm always in awe of the Chinese medicine factor, because these guys were able to come up with the meridians way before we understood what these lines were and how they were connected. Because every time I work on the electroechioscope with Kelly, I'll point to the pain areas. She goes, I think those are your gallbladder points. And gallbladder isn't just in your gallbladder, guys. It can be in your head, it could be on your back, it could be in different places of your hands, your feet, what have you. So, when you stimulate different parts of your body, you're stimulating the actual, area in which you want to correct. Fascianator, I think you guys hit every single aspect of the body, and you're going from head to toe to basically get that flow going. And I think it's really interesting how it's just done. It boggles my mind every time when you just show me the Fascianator. I'm like going, it's a tube, man. Mm-hmm. It's a freaking tube.
Right.
It's part of my French. But I think you have these, the ingredients.
That's right.
And which makes the function of this so beautiful.
That's right.
So if anything, I would say, go to Fascianator.com, go to Fascianator.com, order one of these guys, get his book, his manual, join your Zoom, and they can do that through your website as well.
Yep, it's called the Second Wave Challenge. And why do we call it that? Well, we're rolling not just the muscles, you guys. We're helping your lungs get rid of the excess fluid that likes to build up in the pleural cavity. And it is that excess dirty fluid at the bottom of the lung cavity where bacteria and viruses see an opportunity to flourish. So, knowing I can flush out the garbage from the most susceptible airways to prevent getting sick with this thing, doesn't it make sense? I better take care of myself as a preventative measure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in fact, if you guys are stuck to figuring out what you want to get somebody for Christmas, maybe you can get them a couple of classes with Anthony and get him a Fascianator and get him set up for the next year of being as healthy as possible.
So can I spell it for them so they get it
Yeah,
right?
because it's yeah, absolutely, because Fascianator, people don't know how to spell it.
www.thefascianator, FASCIANATOR.com, the Fascianator.
The
If
Terminator.
you miss the A, you're gonna see someone selling you a little feathery foofy hat from the Roaring 20s. Fascinator. No, it's a Fascianator.
Love it. So how did you come up with that name? Is it because of Terminator? Was it because of Arnold?
You know what? You're so good, Bianca.
I know, I have my moments.
That was one of the reasons, because are you ready for my Arnold impression?
Yes.
Hey, let me tell you something. As the bodybuilder of Mr. Olympia, 8 years in a row, I suffer now from knees and back pains all the time. All the time I'm suffering from these pains. And guess what? Ever since I used the Fascianator, let me tell you, the Fascianator terminates your chronic pain.
I don't know what to say about that, but okay.
I will get Arnold to be my spokesman. You heard it here first, guys.
Listen, man, he's old now. He needs this. He needs it more than anybody else because, like I was just saying before, when you lift heavy weights and you do it for a long period of time, your joints are messed up, and you need that extra fluid for synovial fluid, all that stuff to get the body, just lubricated.
Well, I was at Sean Ray's bodybuilding contest a couple years ago
Yeah.
as a guest presenter with the Fascianator. I met Rich Gasperi and all
Nice.
Ronnie Coleman, all these guys. They all have spinal fusion surgeries.
Yeah,
All of them.
because they don't know any better. This is why this show's important, guys. I'm telling you, the reason why I did this in the very beginning is because I want this information out there. It may sound like a sales pitch sometimes. It may sound like, there's an education to this. The fascia is no joke. This is maybe news to you, like this is new, but this has been around for a long, long time. And the fascia is in every aspect of your body. It engulfs and protects your organs, your cells, your nerves, everything. It affects everything. So if you want to feel better, and if you think you have some kind of a disorder, you may be able to fix it or at least alleviate most of it as much as you possibly can with something as simple as either doing the Fascianator or doing the Jade rolling in specific areas, or just having a conversation with someone like Anthony who can educate you on really what might be happening, because he's taking this to medical doctors. He's talking to professionals in the medical field to help them guide you guys when you go to the offices for treatments, because sometimes those medications have side effects that you can't endure. I can't take medication for fibromyalgia. I'm not one of those people. But, I am doing things like the electrocuoscope, the Fascianator, compression, the power plate. I am doing things like that so that I can sustain a quality of life. And I can't do that if it wasn't for people like Anthony, who created things like modalities for me to be able to utilize them. So any last words that you can say to your fans out there?
Well, I have fans all over the world now, and they're not fans, they're friends, because we're changing their lives. And when they send me testimonials of their students crying, getting the results that they were told will never happen, tell you what, I sleep with a smile on my face at night, right?
Yeah, it's all about that.
And guys, if you're listening, okay, this is very, very important if you're a male. Dry fascia is where cancer cells migrate. And why is this important if you're a man? Well, 95% of men, 75 years and older, get prostate cancer. It's a fact.
Beautiful. Yep.
And that is not genetic. Well, my grandpa had it, my dad had it. It's environmental. Yeah. And if you want to learn more about environmental factors, look up the term epigenetics. It's the environmental factors that cause the genetic predispositions to make themselves happen. So you have an opportunity to control the way your body ages gracefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some things are genetics, but then you're kind of pushing that genetics to the forefront by not taking care of your body and your system the way you should. So you guys heard it. It's thefascianator.com. You can go onto his website, sign up for his classes, do the course. I would say at least do a few courses just to get an example, and take your time with it too. Like me, I may not do all of the sessions. Let's say if there's 3 sets of 2 times swipe over the lat or the shoulders. I may do it once and rest and wait till the next step. Just make sure you guys take care of yourselves. Yeah, I mean, this is an option here, an opportunity for you. I'm here to help you, and so is Anthony Chrisco, thefascianator.com. You can also check me out at Be Fit for Health. And, guys, we're here for you. I want you guys to be healthy, be safe, take care of each other, and I wish you all the best. Aloha.
Aloha.